Good morning, friends and distinguished guests. It is my pleasure to open this special meeting with Professor Erin Gruwell, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the Vidalin Academic College of Education in Jerusalem. In fact, many of our students have shown the movie, The Freedom Riders, and I've learned about your special educational approach. So we are really excited to have you with us today. But first, let me invite Professor Zmira Mevarer, the president of the Vidalin College, to say a few words and open this discussion.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I guess I was very excited about the film, and it was very touching. אני אדבר חצי בעברית, חצי באנגלית. אני מקווה שתבינו גם בעברית וגם באנגלית. אז קודם כל, כמובן, בוקר טוב. Just a few words about our college. Our college is the first college of education in Israel. It was established 103 years ago, and we are a leading college in education since 100 years ago, and we are continuing, we hope to continue to be a leading college of education also now. One of our mission is tolerance, tolerance, and tolerance to everybody. So, please. אני רוצה לחזור עוד פעם. מי שרוצה לשאול, אל תהססו לשאול בעברית. I'm saying that they can ask in Hebrew. I'll translate or somebody else will translate, so that's okay. Don't be shy.
Good morning. So the documentary you just saw, I think it stopped as we were talking about our book. And I actually brought a copy of the book to leave here with the university. But the conclusion of the documentary is actually my favorite part. It takes you to the present, and it takes you to where my students who are now grown up have become teachers themselves. And so the end of the documentary, you actually see them going into jails and to schools and working with students and making sure that every single person has a voice. Every single person is seen, and that young kids know that they matter. And I love that that is the conclusion of our story of students who didn't like school, who didn't like reading, who didn't like writing, became authors and storytellers and teachers, which all of you are in this room about to become teachers. So I love that our story has a happy ending, because for a lot of kids around the globe, they stop believing in happy endings. They stop believing that they can make it, and they stop believing that they matter. And the Freedom Riders are really a testament to change and hope and to second chances. And so I love the fact that that film has this wonderful conclusion. You guys got a sneak preview because it has not been released in America yet. But when I found out that I was coming to Israel, I thought we have to show the film here. And I'm so honored that the American State Department actually had the ability to translate the film into Hebrew and Arabic for you to watch. And so you get to see the film before Americans get to see the film, which is very exciting. My second favorite part of the film is when Maria, my darling Maria, stands on that chair in Bosnia-Herzegovina and addresses that young boy who had just survived genocide in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And she validates his anger, and she validates his struggle of being a young Muslim whose entire family lost their lives in the genocide. But then she challenged him about the importance of not forgetting, but forgiving. And I think that was so important because she starts telling her story, and she really is our protagonist in the Freedom Riders Diary, the book. In the feature film with Hilary Swank, her character is named Ava. And in this documentary, you really see her change and have this transformation from being a young girl in a gang who was so angry and driven by rage and driven by racism, and then finding her voice and saying, I'll be damned if my father ever says a racist joke to anyone. I'll be damned if my father does any of those things that he did when she was a child. And I think that's such a testament to young people when they know more. And there's stories and relationships and compassion and empathy for people who don't look like them, don't talk like them, and don't come from where they come from. Suddenly there can be some kind of healing and hope. And I love how Maria was able, at the tender age of 18, stand on a chair and do that. I think she had to be 18 because I think the number 18 is so symbolic when you think about what the number 18 stands for. So for Maria at 18 to stand on that chair and be so demonstrative, I think is so, so important. So what I'd love to do is I would love to hear from you. I had the most amazing experience yesterday. We had 7 different high schools from around Jerusalem come together. Some were sassy and some were emotional. And we watched the feature film, and then we had an amazing Q&A. And one of the young girls who sat in the front row, her first comment was, I thought you were supposed to be a lot older. You looked a lot younger. So that was kind of a sweet, bittersweet compliment. Because usually in America, they remind me that I look older than Hillary Swank, which is more the American way. But that young, sassy girl, I gave her a copy of the Freedom Riders Diary. She went home, she read it. I got an email this morning, and she just said, I need more. I need more. So I'm going to correspond with her. I sent her an email on my way here, and I just was so touched because, as she said in her email, I had a really sucky life, and I want to change. And I think that's what we as educators, before we teach literature or mathematics or science or even religion, may we teach hope. May we let education be the answer to change, to start over, to actualize our dreams, to become our authentic self. And you don't have to be a classic teacher to be that educator. For me, the most amazing educators I have ever met were Holocaust survivors. Renee Firestone walked into our lives 20 years ago with a tattoo on her forearm from Auschwitz. And she stood in front of each and every one of my students, and she told her story, and has been doing that for 20 years. April 1st is her 92nd birthday, and I'm so honored every time that she invites me into her home to have a Shabbat dinner, to celebrate Passover. I recently was able to take a young Rwandan who survived his genocide. He didn't know what to do with the gefilte fish. He tried it. But what was so beautiful is Renee, in all of her glory at the age of 90, actually went to Kigali, Rwanda, and met with family and friends of his in his country who had survived a genocide. And she was so angry. She kept saying, why haven't we learned? Zakor, remember. And I think after she survived the death march in Auschwitz, she thought, well, with modern technology and television, there's not going to be a genocide in Cambodia, or one in Bosnia, or one in Rwanda, or one in the Sudan. And yet, each and every time she is called to get on that plane and to go to Cambodia and Bosnia and Rwanda and the Sudan, she's concerned. Why are we not learning the lessons of the past so we're not doomed to repeat it? So I was so honored this year when I was able to bring all of the Freedom Riders back together on our 20th anniversary and to have Renee Firestone as our teacher sit in a panel with survivors from each and every one of those genocides in this century, and to hear their stories about why didn't people listen to our cries? Why did they fall on deaf ears? And so that's really what education is about, because every single one of those panelists, they were not classic teachers. They didn't go to a university like this and learn how to be teachers. But each and every one of those people on that panel taught myself and the other Freedom Riders, who ironically have become teachers, how to listen, how to learn, how to walk into a classroom as a teacher, but more importantly, to stand in front of your students and transform yourself into a student, to have your students become those teachers. So what I'd love to do is I would love to make you the teachers now, and I would love to answer any and all questions you may have. If you want us to translate them, I would be honored. But if any of you are bold enough to have a question or a comment or even just a concern, I would love to turn it to you. And so if anyone is bold enough to just stand up and ask a question, I would love to. Yes, in the back. That's a great question. You use great words like confidence and no. I was completely insecure. I was terrified. I was judging myself. I didn't know. I think I'm an intuitive, and I think I'm an empath, and I read people, but I had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to teach. I just wanted to make a difference. I didn't want to be the kind of teacher that was driven by test scores and grades. I wanted a light bulb to go off. And so for me, it was guerrilla tactics. How do I look at each and every one of these kids who have already been labeled, who were told they were dumb and stupid and nothing, and write a different script, write a different ending to a different story that said, you are brilliant and you are beautiful and you can go anywhere and do anything. I had no idea what I was doing. I just believed in my kids. And I was sad because most of my students believed the rhetoric and had seen that movie in their mind again and again. And they believed they were destined to fail. They believed they were destined to drop out. They weren't supposed to graduate. They weren't supposed to go to college. They didn't have those aspirations. And in my desperation, I think that's where this movement started. I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't have plans. I just wanted my students somehow, some way, to put down a fist, to put down that rock, to put down that Molotov cocktail, to put down that gun, and pick up a pen, because the pen is mightier than the sword. Most of my students had never read a book before, as you saw in the documentary. So the irony of having the Diary of Anne Frank be the first book they ever read was not something I had planned. I was gonna read Shakespeare, I was gonna read Homer, and my students felt that Shakespeare didn't speak to them yet. They felt that Homer wasn't speaking to them yet. And yet a little girl that didn't look like them or talk like them or even pray to the same God that they prayed to spoke to them because she spoke about humanity. And she used these amazing terms. There's one that Anne wrote near the end of her time in the attic about, in spite of everything, I truly believe that people are good at heart. And that's about humanity, about being able to look out that window and watch her friends being let off to camps and not judge every German, every Dutch person, every Christian. People were really good at heart, even though they'd gone astray. So I think that was where I started learning each and every day. Some days I fail, and my students were there to pick me up, and some days we soared together. But I don't think I had the confidence. But what I did have was flexibility, and being scrappy and resourceful, and realize, okay, this didn't work, I gotta try something else. And this backfired, I gotta do something differently. And I think as teachers, we have to have that skill set of reading our audience. Are we making sense? Are we reaching them? Are things relevant? And so for the Freedom Writers, they have the best BS detector. If you are not candid and forthright, they will tell you. They will tell, and as you saw in the film, they are the most honest truth seekers. So when I was failing miserably, I knew in real time. And I think that's important for us as educators is to know that we don't have the right answers. To say, you know what, I'm gonna go out and find out. And I'm gonna go out and find from the source. I did not live through a Holocaust, but here is Renee Firestone. I didn't live through the civil rights movement, but here is John Lewis, who walked across that bridge in Selma and stood beside Martin Luther King. I will find those sources. I will find that material. I will go and pick out the perfect film, the perfect documentary. I love in the documentary when I showed West Side Story. It was a disaster. It was comical. But at least I went out and found Romeo and Juliet in Sarajevo. That was my background. But I think as teachers, we have to be able to make mistakes and be okay with it. And at the same time, in those mistakes, they're the greatest lessons of all.
I think your great secret is loving your students, which you didn't say. אני אתרגם את זה ממש, כיוון שזה היה מאוד מאוד חשוב. לשאלה שלך, היא עובדת בדרך כלל בדרך מאוד מאוד אינטואיטיבית, אני ממש אסכם את זה ב-60 שניות, בדרך מאוד מאוד אינטואיטיבית, אין לה תשובה מראש, אין לה תוכנית עבודה מסודרת מראש, העבודה שלה היא בעיקר עבודה אינטואיטיבית. אחד הטיפים המאוד מאוד חשובים, בעצם שני טיפים שמאוד מאוד חשובים, אחד זה להיות גמיש, פלקסיבל, אם אתם רואים שמשהו לא הולך, לעבור למשהו אחר, לעבוד כל הזמן בצורה שמאפשרת גמישות יחד עם הסטודנטים, לא לפחד להיכשל ולעשות עוד הפעם אחרת, כי מה שחשוב מהכישלונות, גם ראינו את זה בסרט, זה ללמוד מה לעשות מהכישלונות, ללמד את כל התלמידים שלה, לקבל כל אחד, לא כל הגרמנים הם כאלה וכאלה, כל השחורים הם כאלה וכאלה, כל הלבנים הם כאלה וכאלה, כמו שהתלמידה הזאת אמרה בסלובניה, אלא לדעת לקבל את כולם. אבל אני חושבת שהטיפ כאן הוא להיות מאוד אינטואיטיבי, רואים שהיא מאוד מאוד אוהבת את הסטודנטים שלה, את התלמידים שלה, ולהיות גמיש מספיק. עוד דבר אחד שהיא אמרה, מה שהוליך אותה זה לא ללמד כדי שהציונים יהיו יותר גבוהים, מה שהרבה מאוד מורים עושים, אלא to change, לשנות את העולם, לשנות אותם, כדי שהם יהיו מעורבים יותר בחברה ויותר סובלניים בחברה.
Yes, right there. How do you address hate? When you have underserved kids and that is their modus operandi, through vigilance, deliberate, intentional, and purposeful. It has to be a part of every moment of every day. You have to be so aware of who you are serving. And I had 150 students, let me be clear, I had 150 students who were intolerant. I had 150 students who were the victims of gang violence. There was 126 murders in the Long Beach community before I began teaching. So every single student had been touched by a murder. Every single student had a family member in a gang or incarcerated and had aligned themselves in racial groups. So everything that we did had to address that this is a hate-free zone. Everything that we did, every story we read, every paper we wrote, had to address that we have to learn to be inclusive. We have to learn to be accepting. I had a Holocaust survivor, Renee Firestone, tell me, tolerance is not enough. I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be accepted. So we had to strive for that even that much further, and go from disparate enemies to 150 members of a family who could agree to disagree, who could have complex discussions. But we had to validate the pain, we had to validate the story, we had to validate where that anger was coming from, and we had to learn how to reconcile. We had to learn how to forgive, and we had to learn to model that every single day so that Maria Reyes could stand on a chair in Bosnia-Herzegovina and say, this is my truth today. That is our lesson. That is our purpose. And I hope as educators that we are in that moment of every day.
בכל יום, בכל רגע, צריך להיות מוכוונים, לדעת שזה מה שאנחנו רוצים. אני חושבת שהמשפט המפתח הוא סובלנות, זה לא מספיק. סובלנות אולי זה תנאי הכרחי, אבל לא מספיק. אנחנו צריכים לדעת להכיל, to accept, לקבל את הסטודנטים או את התלמידים שיש לנו. היא אמרה, היו לה 150 תלמידים שכולם באו מאזורי שנאה, נקרא לזה. כולם היו חשופים לרצח, לשפיכות דמים וכו' וכו' וכו'. והחשיבות הייתה כל יום, כל דקה, להיות ערים ומודעים לסיטואציה ולעבוד לכיוון אני קוראת לזה סובלנות, אבל יותר הכלה וקבלה forgiveness, אני שכחתי את העברית שלי, סליחה, כמו שאמרה מריה בסלובניה, כשהיא עמדה שם על הכיסא ודיברה בצורה מאוד מאוד החלטית.
Yes. The question is about trust. How do you gain trust of your students? In the documentary, Maria admitted, I hated white people, plain and simple. And she wanted to know if it's important for students to have teachers who are of their ilk, of their religious background or their ethnicity. We have to assume that we have to earn their trust. It's not natural and automatic every single time, as I saw. I thought it would be, and I was wrong. I had to earn their respect. I had to prove to them that I wasn't going anywhere. And when you are hurt and abandoned, it is easier to push somebody away than to pull them closer. Because for a lot of my students, they didn't want a handout. What they needed was a hand up. And so what they thought is it's this revolving door that a teacher is going to come and then they're going to get frustrated and they're going to leave, because the turnover rate in inner city schools in America is quite dramatic. Teachers do get afraid. Teachers do leave. Teachers do change professions and try and make more money if they can. So I think my students just assume this crazy white woman with her polka dots and pearls, she's out of here. She's out of here when it gets tough. She's out of here when we make her miserable, so let's make her miserable from day one. Let's make her cry if we can. Because if we trust her and we let her in and she deserts us, that kind of pain is too difficult. So let's not let her in. So I had to work really hard to prove to them that even with those tears, even with those names, even as miserable as I was, that I wasn't going anywhere. I would show up day after day after day. And so it's important for you to earn their respect, earn their trust, and allow them to test you. I think teachers are teachers regardless of who we pray to and the color of our skin and our ethnicity. But you have to acknowledge that. I had to acknowledge who I was and validate who they were. So I think it's important for me as a woman that I had to bring in people into my classroom who were a reflection of my students. I had to bring in men when most of them had fathers who were dead or in jail. I had to bring in African Americans and Latinos and Asians who could be great role models to my students and teachers to them as well. Because I wanted my students to have something to look up to look forward to aspire to. So I think as educators, we don't have to do it by ourselves. We have to create a cadre and create a coalition. And that's what I tried to do.
אנחנו צריכים כמובן לרכוש את האמונם של הסטודנטים כל יום, כל שעה, כל הזמן. אנחנו צריכים, אני חושבת שזה היה המסר העיקרי מהדברים האלה. זה לא פשוט, זה לא היה פשוט, צריך לעבוד על זה בנחישות ולרכוש את אמונם. כי רק אחרי שרוכשים את אמונם, ושוב כל אחד בא במקרה הזה ממקום אחר, מרקע אחר, צבע עור אחר וכו' וכו', והם היו צריכים, והיא רכשה את אמונם, כמו שאתם רואים, כמו שראינו בסרט, ורק אחרי שרכשה את אמונם, נתנה להם תקווה, what next, מה יהיה, מה אנחנו נעשה, לאן אנחנו נגיע.
Oh, that's a great question. How do you do all this and not be patronizing and condescending? I was very sneaky. I was very subversive. We played games. We played games that got them out of their comfort zone. In the feature film, you could see some of those games. We played the line game. We did a toast for change. We did things that felt non-academic, but were so much bigger than just a game. Because I wanted them to be the storytellers. So I wanted to introduce a concept, but it came from them. The answers had to come from them. The validation had to come from me initially, but then we all had to validate one another. So you're right, you can't talk down to them. You can't be condescending. You can't feel like it's medicine because they'll push you away and they will resist. So when it comes to something like issues of hate, which is sometimes taught at home, taught on the street, you have to be very delicate as you are teaching love and you are preaching acceptance. You have to model it every moment. You have to stop things when they are going awry, and let your students know, like in the documentary, when things aren't tolerant, when things are not inclusive, you have to stop everything and bring them back on a track. So I think students appreciate being able to come up with the answers themselves, but you creating a safe environment, a secure environment, and a place where kids can feel whole and accept the fact that they need to heal, if that makes sense.
אוקיי, כמובן לא להטיף, לא להגיד כך וכך אתם צריכים לחשוב וכולי וכולי, אלא ליצור, עוד פעם, כמובן ליצור אימון, ליצור סביבה בטוחה, וליצור מצב כזה שהם יגיעו לבד להבנה או לתובנה, יותר נכון לתובנה, שהם צריכים, לאן הם צריכים ללכת, מה הם צריכים לעשות. הדרך הזאת, דרך הכתיבה, מאפשרת להם להגיע לדברים האלה, אבל לא באופן ישיר ובוודאי לא, אם אני אגיד, עטפה, לא השתמשה במילה הזאת, אבל זה מה שהשתמע מהדברים. כן, בבקשה. I'm sorry.
I met this wonderful man last night. It's good to see you again. His question was the system, other teachers, administrators. I like to think I'm a revolutionary. And I say that. I'm not naturally that bold. I am not confident. But I was your age in college, and I watched this kid in Tiananmen Square, China, stand in front of a tank. And as that tank got closer, he got even closer to the tank. And I watched that and I thought, I have never stood up to anything or anyone. I went to the right school, I played the right sports, I joined the right clubs. I have never stood up to anything or anyone. But in that classroom, I'm going to stand in front of a tank. And sometimes that tank was a cynical teacher. Sometimes that tank was laws that were outdated. Sometimes that tank was society itself. And I was really willing and ready and able to get run over by that tank for my kids. The irony is I never thought we would go to Sarajevo, and we actually saw tanks in Sarajevo, and I almost wanted to jump off the bus and like stand in front of the tank. I didn't. But I think as educators, we are not there for the other teachers. We are there for our kids. So the system was broken in my classroom and in America, and I wanted to challenge it. And so we are still trying to be revolutionaries and change the system of our education in America. It's a big tank, but I'm standing in front of it. I hope, it's a bad analogy, but I hope that you do as well, that you stand up for your kids, whoever you have, whether they are the brightest and heading out to the university from the get-go, or they're damaged and they're wounded and they need something. Stand up for your kids regardless.
אנחנו כמורים. משפט אחד, אנחנו כמורים, אנחנו נמצאים במערכת בשביל התלמידים, בשביל הילדים, אנחנו לא נמצאים במערכת בשביל המורים האחרים, או בשביל המערכת כולה, או בשביל המנהל, או בשביל המפקח, והילדים הם הדברים המאוד מאוד חשובים. היא לא באה מאותו רקע, מהרגע הראשון, מרגע שהייתה סטודנטית כמוכם, זה לחשוב על הילדים, ולעשות בשביל הילדים. אני חושבת שזה משפט המפתח, ולא בשביל המורים או המערכת בכללה.
She wanted to know if I've ever been to their homes and their streets. Yes. And it was terrifying, I have to be honest. We did a lot of adventures. You saw we did field trips to Washington, D.C. and Europe. And we would come home and I would have to take these kids to their homes, safe and sound, and deliver them to their parents. And in Los Angeles, it's a very dangerous place. We have one of the highest gang populations in America, one of the highest murder rates in America. And we have housing projects that are so dangerous and so scary. And so to be able to take my students home and see where they live and see the helicopters at night, to smell the marijuana in the air, to see drug dealers standing on a corner was a terrifying thing, and I would cry the entire drive home. But I thought, I have a car and I'm driving back to my home, and they're in the middle of this. So I think it was really important for me to know where they came from, to see what they saw, and to understand the reality.
השאלה הייתה האם היא ביקרה בבתים של הילדים וברחובות. התשובה היא כן, גם בבתים וגם ברחובות. בלוס אנג'לס היא הייתה ברחוב, ועל ידה היה מוכר סמים וכולי וכולי, מאוד מאוד פחדה, ובכל זאת עשתה את הדברים האלה.
Yes. Luckily, I didn't have a breakdown. I cried a lot. I was scared a lot, but I never gave up. I don't know why. This is terrifying, and I want to run off the stage, but I'm going to stay here until you go to your next class. But I think what pushed me and what will push all of you is it's bigger. Education is so much bigger. Whether you're an imam or a priest or a rabbi, it's a calling. I believe that education is a calling. That there are moments of godliness in a classroom, of true and utter miracles and transformation. And we get to bear witness. And education is bearing the legacy. And so for me, I just was so honored and blessed and humbled to have those moments of seeing miracles every day. And a miracle may just be self-confidence. A miracle may feel like I'm smart enough and I'm good enough. A miracle may be a graduation. So I never left and I never broke down because I wanted to see, I'm selfish enough to see, I want to see the celebration. I want to see the hope. I want to stand here and wait for the miracle.
היא לא נשברה. נכון שהיא הרבה פעמים בכתה ובאה הביתה מתוסכלת וכולי וכולי, לא ממש נשברה, אולי השתמשתי במילה יותר מדי קיצונית. והיא ראתה ניסים או מירקלס כל יום, אפילו בדברים הקטנים. וכל יום כשהיא ראתה את הדברים הקטנים האלה קורים, את המירקלס האלה שקורים, זה נתן לה מוטיבציה, דלק, להמשיך הלאה. שאלה? One more.
Right there. How did we raise the money? My favorite thing was making a decision that it was all or nothing. If we're going to go somewhere, we're all going to do it, or none of us are going to do it. And I had parents that did not have money. They were the poorest of the poor. So it really was incumbent on my students to raise the money. And to do so, that was symbolic. And so I love in the Washington, D.C. scene with those buttons. Those buttons were symbolic of names, of people who lost their innocence to violence, to abuse, to death. And my students realized you could make a button for 25 cents and then you could sell it for $5. And they went door to door to door, to churches, to mosques, and to synagogues, and sold buttons. And so they went to Mel Mormelstein and said, can we wear buttons of the names of your family that was last at Auschwitz? So Mel Mormelstein bought 9 buttons, not just for $5 each. He paid $100 for each button. And so that was something beautiful that my students felt economic and perseverance, and it was a representation of what we were about. It wasn't just having somebody write us a check, some philanthropist. It was them working for a cause, them feeling like they were entrepreneurial and social activism at its finest, but also wearing that name, wearing names of Holocaust survivors, wearing names of a father who was shot, was so symbolic because that father and that survivor was with us. And we were honoring their name, their story, and their spirit. And so that to me was the best kind of fundraising that we had. And I realized no matter how cynical people were, they couldn't stop my students because it was a cause. It was a movement, and they were going to the moon.
הם החליטו מההתחלה, האמת היא, thank you for your question because we, the teachers of the college, the professors and so on, have the same question. When we send students abroad to conflict situations and want to ask the same thing, so we have to collect money. It's a very important thing. Funding is very important thing. So, מה שהם עשו, הם החליטו הם יאספו כסף לבד, הם לא יתרמו על ידי תרומות, ואז מה שהיה בסרט, הכפתורים האלה שהסטודנטים חילקו, הם בעצם עשו את כל הכפתורים האלה, זה עולה 25 סנט לעשות את הכפתור, אבל הם מכרו אותו $5, והם כתבו את השמות, זה היה זה מאוד ריגש את האנשים, עד כדי כך שאנשים, אחד תרם $100 וכולי, אבל הם הלכו מבית לבית לאסוף את הכספים, כדי שיהיו להם את הכספים, כדי שיהיה להם את הכסף, כדי לממן את הפעילות הזאת, דבר שאנחנו כאן במכללה, הנהלת המכללה כל הזמן מנסה להתמודד, מה לעשות, איך לעשות, אתם מכירים את המשלחות של הסטודנטים שנוסעים לחו"ל, ואנחנו צריכים לממן אותם. פה צריך לסיים. Sorry, we have to finish, but I have... From the micro experience that you have with your 150 students to a macro level for the whole world. How would you do that?
So her question was, how do you go from the micro to the macro, to 150 kids to the whole world? There's a beautiful book written by Malcolm Gladwell called The Tipping Point. And in The Tipping Point, the number 150 means the revolution is coming. So you are now part of the revolution. And that revolution is one kid, one class, one community at a time. And so I was taught by Renee Firestone, that beautiful Holocaust survivor, that evil prevails when good people do nothing. There is an auditorium of good people. You are compelled. May you be driven to do something. Do something small or large, but do something. Do not stand idly by. So take this profession with all its nobility and all of its cause and all of its righteousness and go out and be part of that education revolution. Thank you.
תודה רבה. אנחנו כאן, כל האודיטוריום, נמצאים אנשים טובים,